Hey, what's up guys, Matt with the Movement System. In this video, we're gonna talk about the truth about knees over toes training. As a doctor of physical therapy and a strength and conditioning coach, I've worked with hundreds of athletes with a variety of different knee pain. So I wanna talk about in this video when knees over toes training works great and when a different approach might be a little bit better. There have been a lot of claims about the benefits of knees over toes training, but no one really talks about the drawbacks or what to do when it doesn't seem to be working with an athlete. This can end up leaving a lot of athletes feeling stuck if they try some of these knees over toes exercises and they actually make their pain worse. All right, so let's go ahead and start with one of the best exercises for patellar tendinopathy and improving and bulletproofing that front of your knee, and that is the slant board step down. This exercise has a lot of research to support it, and there's some specific reasons why it's beneficial. Number one, while we're pushing the knee forward over the toe, we're still maintaining a mid-range quad contraction. That means that we're not in deep knee flexion, and we're not in really shallow knee flexion either. We're loading the quad up with about a 90-degree bend. This allows for a really strong quadricep contraction and a lot of load to go through that patellar tendon to make it stronger. Now, if you're having patellar tendon pain in the front of your knee, this one can be pretty tough. What I recommend is pushing to about a 3 out of 10 or 4 out of 10 pain level. This is really important to know because if we're pushing beyond that, we can exacerbate our symptoms and make things worse. But if we're keeping our exercises completely pain-free and 0 out of 10, our rehab process is gonna take longer, and this actually could become more chronic. So you wanna find that middle ground and do this exercise with weight if you need to, and very slowly, but only pushing to about that 3 out of 10 pain level. All right, so what about really deep split squats where we're really pushing that knee as far forward as possible and straightening out that back leg and working on our hip mobility? Well, this exercise can be beneficial, but only if you do it at the right time and for the right athletes. The thing with this exercise is there's gonna be a lot of compression force on the knee, and there's not gonna be a very strong quad contraction. The reason for that is as we get into this deep knee flexion, our quad is lengthened, there's not a lot of overlap in our muscle fibers, and we can't really produce a lot of force. This compression that we get with deeper range of motion is the same reason for Achilles tendinopathy. If we have a really sensitive heel, we don't go deep below 90 degrees on that calf raise. We just stick with the top range of motion. And we focus again on a really strong muscular contraction in the mid-range where we optimize tendon strain, tendon load, and tendon growth. So while this exercise can be beneficial for building your tolerance to deep knee flexion, it may actually exacerbate symptoms for someone who has acute knee pain, and it might not be the best starting point. So that starts to bring up some of the drawbacks of going into deep knee flexion, knees over toes exercises. Drawback number one is that compression with really deep knee flexion angles that's often not well tolerated. If deep knee flexion exercises are making your pain worse 24 hours after you do them, then I would recommend cutting out that deep knee flexion and focusing first on a really strong quad contraction just in mid-range. I've seen so many athletes consult me or come into our gym who have tried these really aggressive knees over toes exercises and just made their pain worse and go for months and months because they're just jumping into something extreme without mastering the really important thing, which is getting a strong quad contraction in mid-range. This can come from just a normal split squat where we're in a split stance position and we're moving up and down like an elevator. This is not that exciting. It won't get a bunch of likes on Instagram, but it's a really good exercise for getting a strong quad contraction, delivering load through the patellar tendon, and getting us on this positive cycle of rebuilding that patellar tendon. And then another drawback of training deep knee flexion is that it's not really what we need for sport. In fact, if you look at a basketball game, athletes almost never bend their knees more than 90 degrees. Even if you're bending down low to pick up a ball or landing from a jump, for the most part, athletes just bend at their back and really don't go beyond about a 90-degree knee bend. If you have unlimited training time and you can do as much as possible, then I think it can be beneficial to do some of these really deep knee flexion exercises, but don't make that the priority. Make the priority getting really strong in mid-range. That's what's gonna yield the best outcomes for tendon growth, where tendon strain's maximized, where collagen synthesis is maximized, where compression is low and we're not gonna irritate the tendon, and where overall we're gonna get the most benefit. So here's the truth about knees over toes training that no one really wants to talk about. I would recommend the 80-20 rule. 80% of your work is in mid-range where we're getting a really strong quad contraction. 20% of your work could be in deep knee flexion or in terminal knee extension, where we're not gonna get as much of a quad contraction, but there may be some small additional benefits. If you're trying to work through your patellar tendon pain or just build a really strong, robust knee tendon, focus 80% of your work on mid-range split squats with really heavy loads, slant board step downs, leg extension isometrics, Spanish squats or regular squats, and then maybe add 20% of your work in deep knee flexion, terminal knee extension, and things like that. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and we'll catch you in the next one.